Amos 1, we're on part 2. Now, I wanted to give you the paths, the army that's coming for the second advent, but it's too complicated. I need more time. I'll plot it out on the map for you so you'll be able to see it and understand it. It's a really complicated subject, and I want to make it simple as much as I can. So we'll just run through this. There's plenty here. And I've done down to about verse 12, and we're up to 61 pages. So well, we are Amos 1, verse 3. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they have threshed Gilead with threshing instruments of iron. Okay, so he says right here, there's a math formula in here. For 3 and 4. Now we know what he means. 4 comes after 3. But he likes to use that and. Now you understand from going to school, a word problem, the plus sign is the word and. So if you do the math, 3 and 4 is 7. Complete. He's done at that point. Something's going to happen. So 3 plus 4, and it's complete. It's either complete destruction or complete perfection, whichever way it goes. This happens all through the Bible. Look at Proverbs 30. Proverbs 30, verse 15. Proverbs 30, verse 15. The horse leech hath 2 daughters, crying, give, give. That's most preachers. There are 3 things that are never satisfied. Yea, 4 things say not, it is enough. There's that 3 and 4. He didn't say and there, but verse 18. There be 3 things which are too wonderful for me. Yea, 4 which I know not. That's as though that weren't enough, here's the extra. Verse 21. For 3 things the earth is disquieted, and for 4 which it cannot bear. Okay, at the 4th, it's all it can take. But we're using the math. 3 plus 4, it means something is complete. Look at it. I'm going to give this to you out of order, but I think it'll work fine. Revelation 1. Revelation 1, verse 11. Jesus speaks here. He has something to say, and we'll count his statement. Revelation 1, verse 11. Saying, I am Alpha, statement 1, Omega, 2, the first, 3, the last, 4. And what thou seest, 1, write in a book, 2, and send it, 3, to the 7 churches. He did the math for you. 4 and 3 is 7. Look at it in Leviticus. Leviticus 26. Leviticus 26, verse 18. And if you will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sin. That doesn't sound good. That's the first time. Look at verse 21. And if you walk contrary to me, and will not hearken unto me, I will bring 7 times more plagues upon you, according to your sin. That's the second time. Verse 24. Then will I also walk contrary unto you, and will punish you yet 7 times more for your sins. Yet 7 times for your sins. That's the third time. Verse 28. Then I will walk contrary unto you also in fury, and I, even I, will chasten you 7 times for your sins. The 4th time. That's laying down the law. It's Leviticus. That's the book of law. Let's see if we can just ease out of things in the New Testament. See what happens in the New Testament. This is very interesting. Matthew chapter 18. You would think this phrase would show up more often, but it doesn't. In the New Testament, the phrase 7 times only occurs in 3 verses. Matthew 18, verse 21. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times. First time. Verse 22. Jesus saith unto him, I say unto thee, until 7 times 7, but until 70 times. That's the second time. Luke chapter 17. Luke 17, verse 4. This is the third time it occurs. And it occurs twice, so you get 4 of them. Luke 17, 4. And if you trespass against thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again unto thee, say, I repent, thou shalt forgive him. There's the third verse, but the 4th time it's used. All right, that's that 3 and 7, or the 3 and 4 making 7, meaning it's complete. And in the book of Amos, he's giving you when these cities or countries have completed their offense against God, and he's going to destroy them for it. It's over. Time to repent is done. The things that follow all have one basic thing in common. It's killing or stealing or threatening his people, Israel. He's very particular. You would be too. If somebody's picking on your kid, you take that personal. God does too. Israel has been picked on by the whole world for thousands of years. And God's going to come back. And when I was growing up, I don't know that anybody did it, but we always thought they would. Any parent could whip any child. So you behaved around any adult. You were scared of adults. Well, God's coming back, and there's a whooping coming for all these nations who've been picking on his kids. Amos 1, look at verse 3. He says, Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof. Because they have threshed Gilead with threshing instruments of iron. I talked about that a little bit, but that's a bad way to get beat up. Look at David do it. 2 Kings 13. This one is not David, but we'll get to David in a minute. 2 Kings 13, verse 7. Neither did he leave of the people of Jehoahaz but 50 horsemen, and 10 chariots, and 10,000 footmen. For the king of Syria had destroyed them, and had made them like the dust by threshing. That is, he used some instrument that you would normally use for plowing. And they just went over it and over it until it was just turned into nothing. They were cruel. I mean, we think, our warfare is pretty nice. And I'm glad it is. The Civil War was not nice. That ball would enter you and go who knows where and just tear you up. More people were wounded and put out of the fight that way than killing them. And then the amputation and the medicine wasn't good and all that stuff. Our warfare is pretty humane. In America, anyway. Yeah, in comparison to what it could be. The dirty bombs and the IEDs and stuff like that. We don't fight like that. I'm told. I don't know. 2 Samuel 12. Second Samuel 12, verse 31. David is going to go after Ammon. Moab and Ammon. Here's the children of Ammon, and he's going to teach them a lesson. And he brought forth the people that were therein, and put them under saws, and under harrows of iron. There's that threshing instrument. And under axes of iron, and made them pass through the brick kiln. I don't think they came out. And thus did he unto all the cities of the children of Ammon. So David and all the people returned unto Jerusalem. I wouldn't want to be David's enemy. I'd join his team real quick. It was rough warfare. Well, it's going to return that way. When God takes vengeance, he's going to remember how cruel people were to his kids, and he's going to return the favor. Now that typifies what's going to happen at Armageddon. Isaiah 28. Isaiah 28 verse 27. For fitches are not threshed with a threshing instrument, neither is a cartwheel turned about upon a cummin. But fitches are beaten out with a staff, and the cummin with a rod. Okay, this is things that you're supposed to be using for farming instruments. In Revelation, he tells us he's going to rule with a rod of iron. That's not a human instrument. Humans don't use rods. I mean, the rod for the fool's back, but that's that's a small correction thing. Ruling with it. We rule with pen and ink, and but there it's going to be very obvious what he wants. Look at Revelation 14. Revelation 14:14. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat, like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. That looks welcoming. That's a farming instrument. He talks about us as though we are a field. He says, plow up your fallow ground. And the implication is, if you won't do it, he'll be back to do it. He's a farmer too. Remember, he planted a garden in Eden. He knows how to farm. Amos chapter 1, look at verse 4. Amos 1 verse 4. But I will send a fire into the house of Hazael, which shall devour the palaces of Ben-Hadad. All right, Ben-Hadad, that's usually, I'm sure there was somebody named Ben-Hadad originally, but that became a title, like Caesar. That became a title that many people held. Ben-Hadad. You find Ben-Hadad is a title used both of Syrian and Assyrian kings. They just, that struck fear in people, so they just kept using it. If you can't be tough, you can have a tough name. Look at verse 5, Amos 1:5. I will break also the bar of Damascus. That's not a drinking bar. That's when you went out the city or in and out of the city, there was one main gate, an entrance in and out. And that was to control, who comes and who goes. And at night it was closed. And they would put a bar in front of it, and that would keep it from opening from the outside. He's going to take that bar, usually a big metal iron or wooden plank, and he's going to beat somebody with it, and cut off the inhabitant of the plain of Avim, and him that holdeth the scepter from the house of Eden. And the people of Syria shall go into captivity unto Kir, saith the Lord. Okay, this bar of Damascus, he's going to take that thing. It's usually bolted to the door. So somebody's got to be big and strong enough to rip it off the door. This reminds you of Samson. They tried to lock him in. He just picked the whole gate up, took off with it. That's our God. He's big and strong. And he can use the things that we consider devices to keep people away and to keep yourself safe. He'll take it and use it against you. And these are all the people he's mad at because they've been messing with his kids, and he's going to pay them back. Now, none of this has happened yet. It's still yet to come. Now you'll see bits and pieces of it that may have partially been fulfilled, but not to the T, and we'll be out of here by the time it happens. This sort of happened to Assyria, and the Assyrians brag about it in Isaiah 10. Isaiah 10 verse 9. Assyria comes in and wreaks havoc for a little while, and then Nebuchadnezzar pays them back. Then Nebuchadnezzar gets paid back, and it's just payback. When I want money from Toby, I say pay it forward. They're paying it backward. Isaiah 10 verse 9. Is not Calno as Carchemish? Is not Hamath as Arphad? Is not Samaria as Damascus? That is, one nation has come in and destroyed the other nation, and they've come along and destroyed the next nation after them. Here's the thing. You need somebody bigger than any nation, because there's no security in a nation. I mean, because you never know when another one's going to pop up and suddenly become the world power. You find that by studying history. If you go back and study the ancient histories, it seems like out of nowhere, a nation would rise up and become powerful, and they would dominate the world. There was always one group that would be running the show, and out of nowhere, they would lose power, and somebody else would come to the forefront. That's God making it clear what he said. I set one up, and I'll pull one down. Whoever he chooses, whenever he chooses. Amos 1, verse 5. He says, I'll break the bar of Damascus and cut off the inhabitants from the plain of Avon. Okay, the plain of Avon. And from the house of Eden. Okay, the word Avon, that's an expression that's used. It's also a valley in Damascus. And I bet it's not going to be on my... Well, it might be. They don't label much beyond Israel's territory. It's way up north. It's all valleys up there. It's all hill country and rocky and steep. And that's what he's talking about here. But he's talking about it as though it's that word, Avon, that they're going to understand. See something similar. Hosea 5. They tell us the word means iniquity. And Syria is bad, but not quite as bad as Assyria, but still bad. And they were pagan. By pagan, I wouldn't necessarily say that Israel was real civilized, but of the other nations, they were the most civilized. At the world we're reading about, people were not civilized, and pagans were real pagans. And iniquity would fit them real well. Here it is, Hosea 5, verse 8. Blow ye the cornet in Gibeah, and the trumpet in Ramah. Cry aloud at Beth-haven, after thee, O Benjamin. Okay, so there it is. They're all going out to war, and the idea is get ready. Everybody get ready. Bad people are coming. You'll find it in Isaiah or Jeremiah there. He's talking about the watchmen. You know, somebody's going to ask him, watchman, what of the night? You know, how's everything look? Or, you know, we got people coming after us. They're always scared about something happening. Nighttime is scary. They didn't have any street lights. You know. Amos 1, look at verse 5 again. He says, and the people of Syria shall go, at the end of the verse, and the people of Syria shall go into captivity unto Kir, saith the Lord. Okay, this is partially fulfilled, but he's going to finish it off later. Kir is the original source of the Syrians. Just like, does he talk about it in here? Oh, I think I've got a verse that'll talk about it in a minute. Kir is originally the people that founded Syria originally came from Kir. Amos 9, look at verse 7. This area is over around the Caspian and Black Sea, over in there, almost, that would be Mongolian territory. Amos 9, verse 7. Are you not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? Well, talk about racial profiling. You don't like Ethiopians? What's wrong? Saith the Lord. Have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt? Okay, he brought them up out of the land of Egypt. Now he's reprimanding them with language. And you'd rather be reprimanded with language than, the city gate, right? He's almost saying that you're as bad as Egyptians. I brought you up out of Egypt, as though they were Egyptians. They were never Egyptians, but I brought you up out of Egypt. And the Philistines from Caphtor. Okay, so there's no such thing as Philistines. The derivative of the word Philistine is what's now called Palestinian. Philistine. That comes from Caphtor, which of course I don't have it on that map and I can't draw. I need to get me some more dry erasers. That's over in the Mediterranean Sea, Caphtor. So there was obviously some sort of a civil war going on over there. And one party won and the other party had to leave. The party that left landed over here on the West Bank, and that became Philistia. They're from Caphtor. Mm-hmm. And the Syrians from Ker. Okay, there's the Syrians right there. Look at 2 Kings 16:9. Second Kings 16:9. Here a king comes in and says, I'm going to beat you to a pulp, not the Philistines, the Syrians. I'm going to beat you to a pulp and I'm going to send you back to where you came from. And that's exactly what he does. 2 Kings 16:9. And the king of Assyria hearkened unto him, for the king of Assyria went up against Damascus and took it, and carried the people of it captive to Ker, there's that place, and slew Rezin. You'll find the use of a name being synonymous with a place, not a person or a ethnicity. In Egypt, this is a wild thing. The pharaohs are not always Egyptian. That's just a title. They're pharaoh. Remember, the Egyptians came to Joseph's Pharaoh and said, buy us in our land. He wasn't an Egyptian. He was buying the Egyptians' land. Okay, so he became king of them and owned everything. And that thing switches 2 or 3 times. I don't have time to go through all of Egypt's history. Back to Amos. Amos 1, verse 6. For thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4. Where's Gaza? That's Philistine Tyria. Gaza, Gath, Ashkelon, and Ekron. For 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they carried away captive the whole captivity, to deliver them up to Edom. We've covered Edom. I can't remember which book it was in, but there's a whole book of the Bible all about Edom. Edom is this territory just south of Israel, right here. Edom, right here. And Petra's in here. And that's always been the arch enemy of Israel. Bad boys. Look at Jeremiah 13. Descendants. Jeremiah 13:19. Here's a partial fulfillment of this. The cities of the south shall be shut up, and none shall open them. Judah shall be carried away captive, all of it. It shall be wholly carried away captive. That's what they would do. They would come in and they would depopulate a place. Now that's the way to do warfare. It's not enough to kill and conquer just with military power and then leave. It'll just revert right back to what it was. You've got to depopulate them. Just grab all the powerful. Now, what they would, like Nebuchadnezzar, a lot of time what he would do was come in and take all the able-bodied men, leave the poor people, the women, and the weak people in the land. But he would take any able-bodied man and then take them to another country. And then he would take people from other countries and bring them to Israel or to whatever country. Flip-flop. So they're not comfortable. And that's what's going on in this verse. Look at it in 2 Chronicles 28. Second Chronicles 28, verse 18. The Philistines also had invaded the cities of the low country and of the south of Judah, and had taken Bethshemesh, and Ajalon, and Girdioth. What a name is that? Gederoth. And, man, why did I pick this verse? Shokol, with the villages thereof, and Timnah. You remember Timnah? That's where Samson is from. With the villages thereof, and Gimzo, also in the villages thereof, and they dwelt there. Man, how come they couldn't come up with better names than this? Verse 16. No, you're not in the right chapter. Chapter 2, verse 16. Second, did I say you Second Chronicles? Yeah, we're in Second Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 2, verse 16. And I will cut wood out of Lebanon, as much as thou shalt need, and we will bring it to thee in floats by the sea to Joppa, and thou shalt carry it up to Jerusalem. We think of these ancient people as being not mobile, but they were just as mobile as we are. They were a master of using boats and ships, and they built great big cities. You see the pyramids down there, but I mean, they would bring in, here he's importing wood. I mean, wouldn't you just use what you got around there? No, I want some from another country. I think if we could go back, I guess in heaven we'll be able to look back and see it, we'll be amazed that they were just as technologically advanced as we are, just with different stuff. I don't think Apple had been invented yet, but they probably had something better. Amos chapter 1, verse 8. Amos 1, verse 8. And I will cut off the inhabitant from Ashdod, and him that holdeth the scepter from Ashkelon, and I will return mine hand against Ekron, and the remnant of the Philistines shall perish, saith the Lord God. All right, there's 5 major cities, 5 major kings that are Philistine kings, and they run right here on the seaboard. It'll be Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, Gaza, and Ekron, somewhere in there. Oh, there it is, Ekron. And here he's going to take care of the Philistines. Philistines had been a problem for a long time too. Now, if you'll notice what he's doing, I should have told you about this to begin with, but he's giving you he's plotting a map. Take these countries that he's going to destroy. He's giving you an order in which he's doing it. It doesn't make sense because he's way up north. We covered north. Then he drops down here. Then he bounces over here. Then he's over here. I think what he's giving you is not necessarily the army, but the timing. So while this one is coming through, as this city falls, this one will fall, and this one will fall, and this one will fall. Not necessarily that it's all the same army doing this, because they're too many miles apart for the same army to be doing it. He says, I'll cut off the inhabitants from Ashdod. The damage that he's going to do here is similar to Numbers 10. When God fought for Israel, you find a lot of verses that talk about God fighting for Israel and like the day when you fought. And those are puzzling verses. Usually you think that must be a future prophecy, and truly it is, probably. But there's an element of history in it as well. It was the Ark of the Covenant that did the fighting. Remember, that took them in, they took that thing into battle. And it literally fought. Watch this, Numbers 10, verse 35. And it came to pass, when the ark set forward, that Moses said, Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. Well, it's coming back. Nobody knows where it is, because it's in heaven right now. And he's going to bring it back with him. And it's going to do some warfare, just like it did back then. And what it'll do is it'll fly along and it'll wreak pestilence and all the same thing. You'll remember when that ark went down to the Philistine territory. What did it do to them? Gave them all hemorrhoids or whatever it was. Something. Boils and all that stuff. Yep. Well, he's going to do that again. Emerods, I guess, is what it was called. Amos 1, look at verse 8. He says, I will cut off the inhabitant from Ashdod. Okay, who's the inhabitant of a Philistine territory? It's, of course, the giants. The giants are from down there. So, what is a giant? A giant is a mix between, is the offspring of a mix between a human and a supernatural being. So when they came from Castor, I don't think they were supernatural beings. These are the people that got beat. Their home was Castor. The giants weren't in Castor, or they wouldn't have got beat. They left Castor. They came over here to Canaan, and while there, they got tied up into some supernatural junk. And that's where you get all that mess that happens in Genesis chapter 6, the sons of God coming into the daughters of men. He says, let's look at it, Genesis 6. I should be able to quote it, but I don't want to do it wrong, so. Genesis 6. Genesis 6, verse 4. And there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. When this happens, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. That's why the giants didn't cease after the flood. Two things people get wrong is they'll tell you that the flood, that it took Noah 120 years to build his ark. The numbers are given to you. He's 500 when he has his sons. He's 600 when the flood begins. So it only took 100 years. The 120 years is the limitation God places on the life of a giant, the offspring of that union. So that's what's going on. They come over here and they get to delving into that mysticism and supernatural, and they were already pagan, but the devil really had him a heyday. Now, no wonder he focused in on this territory right here. We talked about it this morning. That land is God's land, physically. He doesn't have any other place like that on earth. He owns that territory as a special spot. So the devil wants to do anything he can to mess it up. And so there he goes. Zechariah chapter 9. Zechariah 9 verse 6. That probably explains this verse. Zechariah 9 verse 6. And a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, that's Philistine, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. That was their pride, was their strength. They're great giants and the kings that could war anything. And when they come in, according to the history books, when they would come in, just the sight of them would scare people. Because, people haven't seen these other giants, and then all of a sudden this superhuman looking person shows up, and that'd be a little scary. Or it could be that inhabitants could also be Daniel 2 verse 44. There's going to be 10 kings that are going to be supernatural beings during the tribulation time period. Daniel 2:44. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. It's going to have to be a pretty strong kingdom to knock out a supernatural king. And there's going to be 10 of them. Look at it in Revelation 17. Revelation 17, verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. I think there's going to be so much satanic stuff going on. I mean, there already is, but it's not as open. But in the tribulation, it's going to be overt. The devil's here. And there's going to be so much satanic stuff going on. And here he's giving them magical, mystical powers after sitting down with him for 1 hour. And that's some wild stuff. Amos 1, verse 9. Amos 1, verse 9. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4. Okay, you know where we were? We were in Philistine territory. That's right down here. Now he's going to Tyre. I can't reach that high. Tyre is right there. Way up there. That's moving some miles. I don't think that's the same army. I think he's giving you a timeline of how things are going to fall. And it's one army. It's his army. But it's 3 or 4 divisions. And he's telling you how things fall on the time if you're watching the clock. Amos 1:9 for 3 transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they delivered up the whole captivity to Edom, and remembered not the brotherly covenant. Now that's bad news. Edom, remember, that was the arch enemy of them, and they delivered them. If you really want to do, that's cruel right there. It wasn't bad enough that they just won. They beat them. They said, we're going to go take you to your arch enemy. Oh, we're not going to put you in our jail. We're taking you to Cuba. They got better jails down there. You know, we give 3 meals. They don't give any meals. So that's where we're taking you. I guess that's what Guantanamo's about. We don't need to get political tonight, but the inhabitants of Tyre and Gaza are bad news. Both of them picked on Israel. And it wasn't just a matter of we need to conquer or we want power. There was a supernatural, they don't even understand it, animosity with the Jews. There's been such an anti-Semitic thing that just always goes on. And here he's laying out all these countries and how they've picked on Israel and how he's going to get them back. And he's going to. In verse 3, verse 6, verse 9, verse 11, and verse 13, they all have this same transgression as being anti-Semitic. All of them do. And now they picked on each other, but they got over it quickly. They would join up with each other. You don't find the fierceness amongst the other nations that you do of the other nations against Israel. Something about them. They just hate each other. Now he says something there about the brotherly covenant. Okay, Tyre is not a brother of the Jew. And Gaza, the Philistines, are not a brother of the Jew. Now, Edom, if you went far enough back, you could find that Esau is a brother to Jacob. So maybe that's what he's referring to. Maybe not. We're going to find a brotherly covenant that deals with something where someone is not a brother. Look at it in Matthew 25. Matthew 25:31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all his holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, those aren't brothers, and he shall separate them from one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, and the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. Sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hunger, or fed thee? Or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in? Or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick, and in prison, and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. There's the brotherly covenant. In the tribulation, if you will assist and help the brethren of Christ, literal Jews, bloodline, then that's how you're going to be judged at this judgment. Not us, but Gentiles. 41. Then shall he say unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. This fire thing becomes a theme, and it's going to show up here in Amos. I don't think I got time to get into all that. That's going to come up here in just a little bit in Amos, and we'll see it go through. We'll go through a few more of these. They start all sounding like the same thing in a minute because he wreaks havoc on all of them about the same. He just destroys them, smashes them, and you just start reading it, it starts getting monotonous because he's doing the same thing. He said the same thing. You were bad 3 times, and then I saw it 4 times. I'm going to come beat you up. But if you notice it, he's talking about places. He's talking about what the final offense is. The final offense is always his children being picked on. Now, we've seen historically Israel be picked on. But we haven't seen Israel be picked on the way it's going to be. In Revelation and in Daniel, you find out how they're really picked on. They've never seen it. I mean, Hitler was bad. And Spain was bad. And France was bad. There were some bad spots for Israel to be in. But it's nothing like what's coming. And that's going to be a wake-up call. All right, so that'll do it for tonight. And we'll pick up there next week at verse 9.